like this so much better, man. Where we don't even have to pay attention that much. The screen just pops up at me saying you're supposed to be live now. You can talk now, remember?
Well, the surprise left me speechless, I guess.
So about the shirt, real quick. So imagine if a T-shirt could send you to jail. Now, and it sucks that it's so low. They didn't know how big my chest is gonna be or something.
Well, I guess it's the.
Can you read it?
And another one could get you out, Free Betty. Yeah, that's a wonderful shirt.
Yeah, I wish it's more visible without having to pull my shirt up.
Well, eventually it's the issue of the angle of the camera. It's focused on your face.
Yeah. I didn't do any measurements or anything. I just bought the shirt, knowing it's probably not going to work, but it's still worth doing. All right, so today we are talking about, actually, let me first do this. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to stop using banners, by the way, and just do this instead. So this is just displaying a comment, which looks better anyway because it puts the logo. Mm-hmm. Plus, it's less work for me. I only have to do one thing at a time, and I don't have to keep switching between banners and comments. So what's next? Today's episode, what is it about? We're designing the first 7 lecture episodes for the Ex-Muslim Advocates Learning Series. I changed the name based on input from a new person that will be joining, or at least she applied to join EXMI. And how we met was, and her name is Nashuz, which is a pen name. And how we met was she wrote a book, and she asked me to, get on the podcast to talk about her book. And then we haven't even done that yet. We just had a chat first, and we talked about like so many things.
Was the book published already, or is it
already published? And I bought the book. It's coming. I'm going to be reading it, and then we're going to do the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
And I told her about EALS, Uniting the Cults, EXMI. She wants to be involved in EALS as an instructor too. So we're gaining steam already. Let's see. Let's do some announcements first before we do that. On September 30th, we celebrated International Blasphemy Day 2025 live on this YouTube channel. Recommend everyone to watch. Link is in the comments. A big thing that we did there was focus on the Free Betty campaign. And there's 5,835 signatures right now. Let me check that. It's 5,839 now, 4 more already. Let me put it on the screen real quick.
Well, we should also point out that there was an appeal that got rejected.
Yeah. That was more than like a couple weeks ago, I think, right?
Yeah, but still, so the trial seems to have gone into this kind of an impasse where.
Yeah, they held the 30-month punishment. Yeah, they didn't remove it. They doubled down. So everyone who hasn't done this yet, please sign the petition. Help Free Betty.
The fact it's really unfortunate. I mentioned this last time, but it's really unfortunate that this has the petition itself seems to have lost some steam. That the original impetus that was there to rally behind this cause, to regardless of what's actually the details of the charge, we're talking about someone who is not physically well, that's suffering in jail. So it's as a purely humanitarian issue. People should just take that into account and at the very least sign the petition in order to show that there is some sort of solidarity at that level, at least.
Yeah, we should have a lot more than 6,000 of these. I think there's a lot more people that care, probably a lot more people that care and saw this. I don't really know. I don't know. Maybe not a lot of people are
Right,
seeing it.
and a place like change.org, they have certain threshold, I believe. Once you cross them, the actual petition has a different kind of impact. So
You mean they show it to other people on change.org?
yeah, I think so. I think, if I'm not mistaken, 10,000 is a mark.
Then maybe that's what we should be telling people. Let's get 10,000.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I haven't looked at it in a while, so my information could be incorrect. But I believe 10,000 would be something that changes the nature of the petition.
So in addition to that, you can learn more about Betty and her situation and how you can help with a lot more things than just signing this petition. And the link is in the comments. Okay, so do you have anything else to say about that before we move on?
Just to hope that people actually do look at what's going on and to keep following the developments of this situation. It's really important to keep that in the minds of people, because just the fact that this had some spot in some corner in the news at one point doesn't mean that the problem has gone away. It's still there.
Yeah, that just reminds me of the whole movement, by the way. Our cause to end apostophobia and apostasy laws. You know, suppose we do one live stream on something. The impact we're making is small. I mean, even if you consider like one of the big organizations, human rights organizations, let's say they succeeded to help someone get asylum. That is one person that got helped out of millions that need it. So impact-wise, percentage-wise, 1 in a million, a drop. It's all important, and we need to do it. And more clearly, in order to make more impact in the future, we need to make impact now to make the ball rolling and start causing some acceleration. So all of this is important. No one should be like giving up because it's a small amount of impact.
Right.
A lot of small units make big later.
Right. The issue with something like apostophobia is that for many people in everyday life, this doesn't actually appear on their radar in any meaningful sense, because the idea is that when you're going through this process of apostatizing, what you're actually doing is leaving one group and either having no group or joining another group.
And you're also not even leaving a group, to be clear, because a lot of people see leaving our religion as we're leaving our family and leaving our tribe, but a lot of us don't even want to do that.
Right. So this kind of limbo that is characterizing this process of apostasy seems to be away from the natural equilibrium that people would like to have in everyday life. And so it's easier for people who don't actually engage with this to pretend that this is not even there. And it's really it's not an easy effort to bring it up to the general consciousness that there is something that's going on, that this is an issue, that there are people who are suffering because of this.
I mean, even me, I say even me, like I'm an ex-Muslim, but I've been living in the U.S. in the U.S. bubble, American bubble, and probably within my own bubbles, you know, and you know, I don't worry about apostasy laws, but I also notice the way people talk, oftentimes they don't mention apostasy laws. They mention more like what their family and local community is doing.
Right.
But then it does finally come up. You know, if you think of link in the chain and causal chain reaction. The thing that is holding up a lot of this is laws, apostasy laws, but also laws are being propped up by culture, and but it's both directions. Culture is propping up the laws, laws propping up the culture. If you could somehow fix the laws despite culture not fully being there yet, which is always the case, by the way, when we come out with a new law that fixes some human rights issue, not the entire populace, not the entire culture has agreed with it, but we did it anyway. You know, every case of that happening in the U.S. was that way.
Right. I think the idea of laws as being repealed. I mean, we discussed this in some other context. I'm not sure if we want to elaborate on this, but these laws did not actually turn into laws until the Islamic countries actually had a secular way of living. Basically, once they started having the influence of colonialism, the influence of the West, they started having actual laws, actual constitutions, and that's where you can start seeing apostasy appear in the form of a law that's also attached with blasphemy. It's this whole cluster that started with some version in the West, but then when it took hold in Muslim countries, it also included apostasy, which is not something that's even in the West. And so that in part explains why, if you go to the West and talk about apostasy laws, the main reaction that you're likely to get is, what on earth are apostasy laws? We've never heard of it.
Yeah. The main reaction is, can you tell me what apostasy means?
Yeah. So it's not something exactly. And so the whole idea that this is actually enshrined in law and not a kind of a social reaction that happens to someone who might be changing their religion is not even something that people in the West really understand or see as something that could have actual legal consequences on the person. Now, to be fair, what's actually happening in Muslim countries, except in a few exceptions, it's still a social reaction. It's not that the apostasy laws are being activated everywhere and you have people rounded up because they're apostatizing. No, that's not really what's happening. What happens very often is that people go into some form of or they get exposed to an accusation that they have committed some kind of a blasphemy. They go to court for that. But it's very often the case that it's the general populace that turns against them. If there's some kind of a spotlight.
Sometimes it's even your own family member that does the action and
exactly,
kills you.
Exactly. And so there are many situations where it's the basically you end up having a mob that's taking things into their own action in a kind of a vigilante way to enact what they consider to be a religious law in the presence of an actual law for apostasy in that society.
And the point there is, or one of the points to mention there is, a lot of what happens in a lot of these countries is, even in the case where there isn't an apostasy law, but the concept is respected culturally, the government will turn a blind eye if a vigilante kills someone for apostasy.
Right. Yeah. That's absolutely the case.
And then when they do have the law there, and a vigilante does that, the country might again turn a blind eye to the fact that, well, somebody did this without the state doing it, which on its own is illegal. But they're like, well, since you did the job for us, go ahead. That's fine.
I wouldn't go that far to say that they're going to turn a blind eye. I cannot really mention specific cases of this. The person is going to probably face some consequences, but probably they're not going to be as dire as when you have a regular civil crime that supposedly involves something that is not explicitly related to apostasy. But the idea is actually very similar to what happens in honor killings, so-called honor killings. In so many places, the family member that commits the honor killing gets a pass because, yeah, sure, you did commit a crime. You killed that a female from your family, or uh, um, uh, 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 you assaulted a male who was involved in this. That is still going to get some consequences, but it's usually so light that very often they get no punishment at all, or very light punishment. So the
Yeah, and
problem.
I guess they're doing the punishment kind of like, well, hey, we did do something, so you can't complain we did nothing. But it's very light. Like, as an example, it's not about apostasy, but like in Saudi Arabia, if a woman gets raped, she gets in trouble legally. And maybe the man does too, but the man's punishment is something like, what, 3 months in jail?
It's not only Saudi Arabia. This is more common than that, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get to the main point today. Let me post this comment. Here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be explaining our current ideas for EALS, the first 7 lecture episodes. And we would like people to give us their feedback to help us make this program work for them. Who knows? Maybe somebody might say something we didn't think of, and there's something we need to include in our program.
And also, if I may add to that, any kind of program, whenever it's going to start, it's going to be a proposed idea that's probably going to receive some iterations, some modifications, that, like any kind of thing that gets rolled out, if it's actually going to be tested in real life, it's going to receive some versioning, some additions.
So let me talk about that. Mm-hmm. If you think about it like cycles, the first cycle going through all the lecture episodes, we're going to have a second cycle, a third cycle. So that means each episode is getting multiple iterations. And yeah, each iteration is going to get better. That's another way of saying this is all tentative. Nothing's in stone, unlike, the Islamic way. The Quran, it's in stone, supposed to be. Although, were they writing in stones back then? It's weird that we say in stone.
Well, according to the claim, they used to write on the shoulder blades of cattle and on parts of the palm tree.
And how many centuries is that after we were writing on stone? It's like 1,000 years?
Well, writing on stones, they still wrote on stones in Arabia during that time. Like, what happens right now, the epigraphy evidence that has been surfacing since the 2000s, maybe, it's actually showing so much writing that has been taking place at the dawn of Islam that it's actually changing the picture that we have right now of what really prevailed in that region in terms of religion and in terms of monotheism and so on. So yes, they were writing on stones, but it's not the kind of stone. You can think of it as a kind of a graffiti kind of thing, where you have this shepherd passing by, records the death of a person, or records some kind of an event or something of that sort. There is a huge body of that right now.
I'm so glad we live now instead of back then, in a time when you couldn't write. Like, I don't know how far back you have to go, but you couldn't record things. That sounds like a very shitty scenario. You have to remember everything?
Well,
I hate remembering things.
If you really look at that, this is actually not a very normal situation, because at the time when these people were recording things on just stones in their environment, you also had other cultures in the same region but in different places writing on parchments, on pieces of animal skin, on papyri, on all sorts of media that we would have some kind of an identification today with, by scribes who are professional writers. So it's not that back then it was really only that. It's probably just a subset depending on the culture.
I'm just glad we live now. And then, like, if it was another 1,000 years before I was born, maybe that would have been even better. Unless we end up with like a Walking Dead scenario. And by the way, have you ever have you've seen the show Walking Dead? The Walking Dead.
I watched a few episodes.
Okay, so if you was it in the beginning you watched the earliest episodes?
Yeah, I don't have a very big affinity to the idea of
zombies.
It does not make sense.
That might be an Arab thing because Zorro has the same problem. Every time he's watching me watch that show, he makes fun of it's zombies again.
The problem with it for me is that it really does not make sense at all from the concept that if you're going to be scared of an invasion by people who have already been ravaged by some kind of an illness, the illness is probably going to weaken them, not make them even stronger. So the idea of zombies,
be really rational about it. Let me tell you the rational part about it that I like thinking about. This is what I was going to bring up.
Let me just say something about the what I understand that the origin of the idea is. It seems that in some places where they practice voodoo and things of that sort, there was some kind of rituals or some kind of a procedure that probably involves some chemical substance that could cause you to die or sort of appear to be dead and then come back again. And so there is some kind of a background to this, real background, but the obsession of this as a kind of a apocalypse that's going to swallow everything up. It's I don't find.
I like the show because they're teaching morality and helping people think about situations they've never been in and never thought about.
Right. No, that's fair.
But here's the main thing. If you watch the show, you'll see occasionally people are committing suicide. If I was in this show, I would be gone after the first episode because I would have committed suicide and I would have convinced my kids, let's get the fuck out of here. This is stupid. I don't want to live in this shit. And you watch the show, it goes on many years, seasons. People going on for years like this. We're going to rebuild the world. Fuck that.
Anyway. I didn't watch enough to know why people are going to be committing suicide. Is it because of the situation around them, or is it something that's happening to them?
Well, they think they're going to get eaten by zombies.
Okay.
And also, the humans are not being good to each other. What they show in the show is that what's worse than the zombies is evil humans.
To be honest, I don't think that's realistic, because if you look at how we actually ended up creating civilization, it's exactly because we like to work together. You can imagine that when we started working together to build primitive societies, we were essentially in a situation not that different from what you're describing. We were being chased by predators. We have all sorts of things in nature that would be easily killing us.
Are you saying that, okay, so early on, we weren't warring with each other, but once things got easy for us, then we started warring with each other?
Well, we were warring against each other. I'm not saying that it was all rosy. I'm saying that we do have a tendency to collaborate and to work together.
There was plenty of people collaborating. Those are the good people, collaborating with each other. The point is there's a bunch of evil ones.
Yeah, well, I don't know about the anthropology of how this would work, but I would suspect that more people are likely going to collaborate the same way that we have now people collaborating to create some kind of a society instead of working against each other. Now, if there's an issue of resources, I can definitely imagine a lot of war.
Oh, that's what they were showing too. Yeah, I mean, you can't even make resources anymore. Everything is you got to find what already exists.
Yeah,
It hasn't been used yet.
yeah.
All right, let's get to the point. So somebody says, and how do I pronounce this? Mirial?
Mira,
I don't know. She said she played the games, and I guess she means the Walking Dead games. I didn't know there was a game. That's cool. Okay, so let me put this on the screen. This is what I'm planning for the first 7 episodes. First episode is guiding philosophy of the program. And the vision of this organization is a world where people recognize love as the goal and reason as the method to achieve it. And so the focus is going to be on that first part, love. This is another way of, so by the way, love and reason, it's another way of saying morality and epistemology, except I don't like using big fancy words. And I think a lot of people, when they hear the word love, they get a pretty good conception of things. Not fully. Sometimes they focus on, I don't know, they might focus on romantic love or something, when that's just a small sliver of things. So the first episode is love. We'll touch on reason a little bit, but the second episode is on reason. The next 2 episodes, and this might be combined into one, is self-care, emotions, and boundaries. How to understand your emotions, what they are, for one thing, and how to change them, using reason. Boundaries, which is getting into how you deal with other people to take care of your emotions. And the 5th episode is collaboration. So that's how do you work with each other, especially in the context of a nonprofit.
I thought you were going to say in the context of a zombie apocalypse.
Or that. It works for all of it. Yeah. We could be training for the apocalypse. Next is, and I'm not sure with the title of this one for now, but I just called it Charisma. And I put a subtitle of Connection. And I really want a comedian to join me. And I have someone in mind. I haven't talked to him yet. His name is Vidu Vids. I mean, I think that's a fake name. And I'm not sure what his real name is, but he's an ex-Muslim comedian. And, he's worked with people in EXMI, so I might be able to get in contact with him. And what's happening here? Hold on. And after that, anti-trolling. And really what that is, that's a fancy name for this. It's about how to have a productive discussion, minimizing unproductive stuff. Trolling is unproductive. If anything, it's sabotaging. It sabotages discussion. So trolling is the worst aspect that can happen in a discussion where at least one of the people are trying to have a productive discussion. And I have question marks here because I don't know the order of things afterwards. An episode on storytelling, something on support groups, and there's a lot more things. I just haven't put them in the list yet. And these first 7, first on this one, I want to bring a therapist on to talk about these things. The rest, I'm an expert on the rest, but I still want other people besides me. I want you for episode 2, Usama. For episode 1, I'm hoping that, and she already said yes, but it depends on scheduling. Haram Doodles will do episode 1 with me. I'm hoping for collaboration episode, like Muhammad Sayyid, president and founder of Ex-Muslims of North America. I already mentioned the Charisma episode with the comedian. Did I say Vidu Vids?
Yeah.
Anti-trolling. I haven't thought about who would do that with me. And I'm trying to get, instead of having somebody come on often, I'd rather spread it out as much as I can. But I guess if I can't find somebody, then I'll, take an episode and try to fill in with somebody that's already been on the show.
So what's the extent beyond this? So here you have essentially 9 items, possibly 8 if you combine some. What's the eventual extent of this, as you would imagine it?
Well, first, it's open-ended. I got to say, and I've said this before, but it's worth saying again, that the things that are going to be taught, how the curriculum is being made, it's not me making it. I'm not the king of this. I mean, I am involved. I'm the one leading this, but I'm going to be having meetings, and the first meeting is this Sunday with EXMI, Ex-Muslims International. And the idea is they're going to be mentoring me in this program, and anyone in EXMI can propose things to be taught, things into the curriculum. And the idea is we would have a committee that decides whether to bring it in or not. So it's very open-ended, but just to say something more clearly, all the things that we all do now have to be in here. So all the stuff related to the Free Betty campaign and how we did it. I say we like I was a tiny little thing in it. I was a soldier in this, not a designer or planner of it. But all the things that went into making that campaign and doing it, and all the activism that is done under the umbrella of EXMI needs to be things taught in here. And this stuff is more background information. Like learning about self-care, that's not going to help you be an activist on its own, but it like removes one of the barriers to let you be an activist. I want to be clear. I was calling this Ex-Muslim Activist Learning Series. Now it's called Ex-Muslim Advocates Learning Series. Advocates is a broader term. It fits better because some of the people that are coming into this, not only, and this is what you said at one time earlier, not only do we want to help them advocate and how to persuade things with their family, but Nashuz said it this way: we should help people learn how to advocate for their own well-being among their loved ones and local community.
Yeah.
So they're advocates for themselves, not just step 2, trying to help your family get better. Help your own situation get better.
Yeah. People very often don't realize that you get very excited about the idea. I have been able to get out of this. I broke free, and you have this impression that you're now able, or you have all the qualifications that would be needed in order to proceed and start helping others. But in reality, you're going to be involved in a process of, I would say it has a sort of healing aspect to it, because there are so many scars that are not going to immediately just disappear just because I have left religion, I'm no longer part of this, that's it. The idea of as we talked about it before, the indoctrination is something that takes time, takes an effort. It's not something that's going to happen on its own. And
So
yeah, so it's something that not only involving others, but also going to be involving the person themselves in this to go through it.
let me make this a little bit broader. I'm 15 years away from leaving Islam, and I left Islam late. So in a way, you can see it's my last 15-year road is like, I was, if I had left when I was 15 and then 15 years passed, that would be a different story. What I'm trying to say is, even now, even after 15 years, I still have shit I have to fix in my head.
Yeah.
And not necessarily see what people seem to think is, they're de-indoctrinating themselves from Islam, but there's plenty of de-indoctrination you need to do that really has not much to do with Islam, and it's just stuff your parents and society did to you. And Islam is a part of that, but it isn't all of it. Like,
Yeah.
as an example, shame. Shame is indoctrinated into us. Yeah, Muslims do that, and Islam is so into that. But this happens in other religions and non-religions. This happens in a family of atheists. At least for atheists that love shame.
I would say that the separation that we very typically have between religion and culture is not, it's a kind of an arbitrary thing that happens where you draw a boundary. This is culture, this is religion, when in fact when you're actually re-examining your identity that involved religion, you're not only examining that part, you're also looking at other aspects of yourself. And so those aspects that could be affecting you indirectly just because now you have left the religion could be now invoked or activated because of the fact that you have left the religion. They're there, but they seem to be independent of the religion, but they also have an overlap that makes them more pronounced or have an effect when you have that action of going out of what seems to be the flock of people that follow the norm.
Yeah, so let me say this too. The amount of information you need to get out of Islam is less than the amount of information you need to realize shame is wrong and how to stop it from affecting you. Yeah. By the way, let's see if I can pronounce this. Mirayul. But in English, at least, what we do is we try to say which of the syllables is the main one, the X, right? How do they say? I forget what word they use for that.
I'm not going to make a presumption about whether this is supposed to be pronounced in English or not.
Yeah, but don't you have the same thing in Arabic where, like, okay, Rami, Ra is the main part, Mi is short. It's not Rami, it's Rami.
Yeah, but there are differences in the emphasis between the two languages.
Do you mean like you have some words where you don't have an emphasis syllable and you just do them all equally?
No, let me give you an example. Let's take the word register. The way that you pronounce it in English, the default way would be to say register. Go to someone who speaks Arabic, it's very likely they're going to say it with a different emphasis, like register.
Oh yeah, of course, because it's not written in the word.
Yeah, so they use the molds that they have in Arabic in order to.
So now let me try it. Mirayul. That sounds weird. I'm saying it wrong. Am I saying it better?
I don't know.
Maybe she'll tell us. Okay. Here's what I have outlined for the first episode. And what I did was I basically took some of the text I already have for things Like I wrote it's not on the screen, but I wrote an ad for this program, and I wrote a first page document that you would see when you get to the forum. Actually, I guess I should show people the forum link. Maybe I need some more comments. Where do I do that? Let's
Well,
see.
I don't know. Since last time we talked about the forum, has there been any update about that?
I did a lot more work on it. Update like what?
Well, you had an open application last time, and you had one person who applied.
Now there's 2.
Okay.
I just noticed that 5 minutes ago. I hadn't checked it before. Now there's 2. Yep, and they're both wanting to be, members, not instructors. So that's a good sign. We can't have a bunch of teachers and no students.
Yeah.
So I had a bunch of text already written for the program, but not in any form of like a curriculum and not divided up by the episodes. So I took a bunch of that text, pumped it into ChatGPT, and I said, try to make an outline out of this. And it did okay. And then I asked it to estimate how long it would take to discuss these things. And it came to pretty much perfect, exactly the amount of time I wanted to take. These episodes are going to be an hour. Let's say the back 15 minutes is Q&A. So really we need 45 minutes of lecture. And so let's go through this a little bit. The idea is we're talking about the guiding philosophy of the program. Why does EALS need to exist in the first place? And that's, this, I guess this is, when you do something like this, you don't want to just assume everyone remembers all the details of the stuff before they came into this, like whatever's in the ad. You need to repeat things. So, the idea here is, what did I say? I'm trying to remember exactly how I said it in the program. Hold on one second. Let's see. Maybe I should put this on the screen too. Where are you? Here it is. So this is the forum, but it's from my point of view. So if somebody else was to click on this, you would see it a little bit differently. You'd see the first post would be this one. And I don't know why it sends me to the bottom. You would see it at the top. Where do we have this here? Here it is. Our cause to end apostophobia and apostasy laws will outlive us all. So that's part of the point. I don't believe this can be completed in my lifetime. And even if it could, EALS would still be worth it. But because it can't, EALS is even more important. And the idea is all the people that are making impact today in this cause will not live to finish it. So we have to be replacing ourselves, helping other people. What is it? We have to pass the baton. That's what they say.
Yeah, but I do think actually that there might be certain stages that could be completed within a reasonable amount of time. It doesn't have to be like a kind of a multi-generational thing where no real progress is actually seen. I do think that it's possible. Let's actually back up a little bit. So I keep saying something like comparing the current situation with how it looked like when Salman Rushdie published the Satanic Verses. It's a world of difference. So I'm actually optimistic about things moving forward in some sense within our lifetime. How much it's going to move, I don't know. But to say, okay, we're going to actually see this come to fruition in a few years, that's also not a good thing, because
Yeah, and to be clear, I wasn't saying there's not progress happening.
no,
I
I
said it won't be finished.
no, definitely. I'm sure, but what I'm saying is that there probably is some. The way that they sometimes phrase it is that there are some low-hanging fruit that have already been picked, that we can probably say that, okay, there is something that has been achieved, and because of the fact that we have been able to achieve something, that should give us the incentive to go forward, to ensure that all that work is not going to go away. It's not going to be for nothing, that there's going to be something to build on. So, in that sense, there is something to feel good about, that there is some achievement. But at the same time, you have to also look at all those heaps of things that have to be done. We have to also remember that there is the momentum of history that has accumulated so many different things that need to be dealt with. So that any kind of achievement that happens is great, but it's definitely an ongoing effort.
Yeah, there's places going backwards. Take Afghanistan as the example. Like whatever progress Afghanistan people in Afghanistan made, let's say over the past 50 years, they may have lost all that progress, and maybe even have gotten worse too. I mean, the situation for women now is worse than it was, I think, 50 years ago.
Yeah, I think Afghanistan is probably not a very good example to look at where progress is taking place.
No, I was necessarily picking the worst example just to show how clear it is. You can go backwards.
Right, but a lot of these things can be there's a lot of compartmentalization that's taking place here, where Afghanistan is one case, and then you move a little bit west, you have Iran, which, if you also go back 50 years ago, it's a completely different place from what it is right now. But at the same time, if you look at Iran, you see that there are cracks, that the thing that started with taking off the hijab, it has become such a strong movement that it's actually threatening the very stability of the regime itself. So
I mean,
it's
there's also cracks in Afghanistan, and let's go ahead and throw North Korea in there, which has nothing to do with Islam, but it's a similar kind of thing of a country that's like not progressing in a lot of ways other countries are. The crack that I'm talking about is, dude, now people with technology can get access to information in ways they couldn't do 50 years ago. Yeah. Even though the country or the government is trying to stop it. Just the existence of the internet helped with that.
Yeah, definitely.
I heard in North Korea they pass around tapes, cassette tapes, and devices like that with movies and stuff. They're not even watching things that criticize North Korea. They're watching TV shows. Yeah, I think they don't have internet there.
They do, but it's they have a lot of the services. It's just that it's my understanding is that so much control comes from the government itself that any kind of contact with the outside is really super controlled, and very there are a lot of prohibitions. So most of the things that almost anybody else on the planet would take for granted in terms of the flow of information, over there is really, really super controlled.
And they're doing something, I mean, I don't know if it makes sense to call it similar, but with the same goal in Afghanistan, where they said, all right, now young girls cannot go to school.
Yeah.
You can't be educated with a teacher.
And I think in Afghanistan, they were also trying to clamp down on the internet. They took away the Wi-Fi slash wired internet, and they were forcing people to rely on mobile devices. I'm not sure if that's even still that the mobile devices themselves are still connectable to the internet. So they're taking away piece by piece the things that make it possible to be connected to the outside.
Okay, so let's continue here. This is depressing. So the idea is we need to help others get as skilled as we are. And look, this is not just to continue the cause, it's also to accelerate the cause. Our impact needs to go up. It can't stay where it is now. And that means things like even the instructors, like me as an instructor and you as an instructor, we need to be learning from the other people in the movement, like Maryam Namazi, Muhammad Sayyid, people like that. Isaac Newton once said, and this is something that people before him have said too, probably for hundreds of years. If I've seen a little further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. I don't like that it's just very matter of fact. I think it's better to say it the way Eli Goldratt said it. Eli Goldratt is recent. He died in 2012. He says, it's our responsibility to stand on their shoulders and see further than they did. And by the way, part of the point here is if you try to stand on someone's shoulders, and that's a metaphor, what it means is if you try to use someone's knowledge, but you don't learn it well enough, you actually sabotage the situation and you make a scenario where you could be ruining that knowledge for future generations. So we have a responsibility to make sure we get it right instead of fucking it up. I'm sorry, I'm getting angry because I remember things. I have a lot of connections to how many times humans fucked this up. Taking a theory that someone made, the theory was great, they misunderstand it, then people in the future think the misunderstanding was the actual theory, and so they criticize the misunderstood theory. They criticize the straw man of the theory. So many straw mans happening in the world. That's one of the things we'll be talking about in the second episode, reason.
Yeah, but I at that point I would definitely not go into a direction where I would start consecrating and thinking that the views of whoever I think are great are immutable, are things that are impervious to criticism. Just because they are great, I'm using their ideas, it means that I'm going to be conveying their ideas as they are.
That's why there's this part that says and see further than they did.
Yeah, so it's definitely not just taking things as they are and saying, okay, it's a great idea, it's going one example of this is Marxism and communism and how they actually got manifested in the world in so many different places, and they ended up with the same exact result of a dictatorship where people are not able to actually live the supposed great life that was stipulated at the beginning.
She's saying here that she sent me an email a while ago, but haven't heard back. I check all my email. I replied to all the emails that I got. So I don't know, maybe it didn't go to my email. Can you send the email again? And then maybe, I don't know, how can we make sure I get it?
Well, probably if you can sign with the same name that you're using right now, that would be a good.
Oh yeah, well that's one thing. Yeah. Use your Muriel name. Send me an email, and then I'll know it was you. I guess I could maybe search that now in my email, if that name was in there. Nothing came up.
It might be under a different name.
Yeah. if you know me on Reddit, you could message me on Reddit to help me find your email or something like that. Or all right. Then I say here, the guiding mindset for any of us should be, to become the greatest leader, one must first become the greatest follower. And this is just clarifying this point here. Like, you can't just all of a sudden find out there's some great leader, start standing on his shoulders, and then be a leader too. You have to be a follower first for a while, learning all that stuff. Our vision is of a world that recognizes love as the goal and reason as the method to achieve it. Love means wanting the best for people, even our enemies. So instead of thinking, I want my enemies to suffer, which is like a revenge, instead we think, I want my enemies to turn to the good side and become friends with us. So as an example, I don't know, think of nations. By the way, I'm not too hot on nations, but you know, the Nazis and Germany as a nation, World War I, World War II, you know, we were enemies. After World War II, the winners of the war weren't like intending to punish Germans, unlike how we responded to them after World War I. And there's I think at least part of the cause of World War II is the punishment we did after World War I.
Yeah.
And what happened after World War II was things like the Marshall Plan. We helped them become functional economically. In the case of Japan, the same era, after World War II, this is like the 80s, maybe earlier even. The US, I think a lot earlier actually. So what I'm about to say about the 80s is after decades of getting this infusement of knowledge. The US sent, and I don't know if this is the US government or if it's only private entities or both, we sent consultants to Japan to help their companies. And then by the 1980s, Toyota existed as a beast doing its thing. And it was such a powerhouse, not just what they were doing, but what they were doing. The reason they were doing so well was the knowledge that they created from those consultants. And what I mean is they advanced business theory, so much so that the rest of the world wanted to learn it afterwards. So the US consultants helped Japan, and then Japan then helped us back. Like after the 1980s, a bunch of production companies, manufacturers, cars and otherwise, were trying to learn Toyota's methods of production, which were developed by first Japanese companies learning US methods.
I wouldn't really be so general about it in terms of attributing this to the consultants, because Japan on its own has a really impressive work ethic to begin with. Even if you look at before World War II, they were already manufacturing. It's not that they were a kind of a backward primitive nation, but definitely after the Second World War, they sat back and started re-examining a lot of things, and the fact that the country that bombed them is now their ally that helped them rebuild. That's definitely something that did contribute. But I wouldn't put all of that attribution to.
Yeah, I wasn't doing that, by the way. I noticed you keep strawmanning me, by the way. I don't know why you do that. I wonder if you're doing it because you're worried other people are going to be confused about what I said, so you correct that. But then I would recommend you clarify that instead of making it sound like I said it.
Well, Well, in any case, the point that was being presented here gave the impression that those consultants were the reason why Toyota was Toyota.
You
So
said the reason. Okay, none of what I ever say is one factor. There's always multiple factors.
Well, then make sure that this gets presented with a caveat that says that's not the main, or
I'll
that's
try, but there's also issues of just plain language, and you can't just look at what I say and say it has to. The idea has to be what he said right there. He couldn't have made a mistake in what he said. You can't do that. You get what I mean? Doesn't that happen in your teaching in physics? If you said something and you maybe said it wrong, but your idea was right, but you said it wrong, do you want people to complain about that you have the wrong idea or that you said it wrong?
Well, it depends on what the comment is and what the context is. So it's there's not one specific way to address this.
No, but there's styles, and you can like categorize them. So next paragraph. In the case of love in the context of our friends and loved ones, love sometimes means having to say to them, if helping you means hurting me, then I'm not interested. A lot of times people, well, and this is pretty much the whole fucking society. Their conception of love, well, you hear people say things like, love is blind. Mm-hmm. And usually you hear that sentence in the following context. There's a battered woman, her husband is beating the shit out of her while he's also saying, I love you. And then when she's asked, well, why don't you leave him? Well, he loves me and I love him. That's when they say love is blind. This isn't love. Just because there's an emotion of love doesn't mean the actions that he's doing and the ideas that caused them is love. It isn't. It's abuse. It's hate. Another way to say it is it's not proper love. You need proper love. And proper love would let you say things like, if helping you means hurting me, then I'm not interested. The bad love would be, oh, I'll help you anyway, even if it fucks me over. I've had to say this to someone. If helping you, because what they were doing was asking me to do something, and I was saying, I don't think I should do that because it's, and I was describing how I disagree with it. And what I was describing was that I think it's bad for me, but he kept asking me to do it, like ignoring that I have a criticism of the thing. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to make it very clear how I'm seeing it and what they're doing. So I said, if helping you means hurting me, then I'm not interested. It's making it so that he can't ignore the thing he's ignoring. And he took it well. He didn't get mad or anything. The idea here is that all human interaction can and should be win-win, where nobody loses and everybody gets what they want and nobody is sacrificed to another person. The opposite conception is in every human interaction, or at least some, there has to be a winner and there has to be a loser. It has to be someone that loses. We can't, and people say this sentence to kids a lot. Parents say it. You can't always get what you want. Well, yes, you can. You just have to be ready to change what you want. So what, you know, when I say here, everybody gets what they want, I don't mean like if we have an idea to go do something and we have an initial disagreement, I don't mean I get what I want as in the first idea I had at the beginning, a want that I said is what I'm getting. No, that's not what I mean. I mean, both parties are willing to change their ideas, which includes their wants, and then we get our wants. And then how reason connects to this is recognizing that we're fallible. We can be wrong even when we think we're right. We're not perfect. So even if we think we're acting out of love, we could be wrong. We might have crossed over into abuse, hate, without realizing it. So to account for this, we must seek out critical feedback on our actions and leave open paths to discover our mistakes. We must be able to answer, if I'm wrong and someone knows it, how will I find out? Do I make it easy for others to correct me? Or do I build massive walls that effectively block people from educating me? I've been using this phrase a lot on Reddit now.
Most people, unfortunately, have that idea that whatever it is that they're going to say, if it's backed by or if it's related to something so crucial in their makeup, they're going to defend it no matter what. And this idea of being criticized feels like some kind of an existential threat to who they are, and it completely blocks them from even listening to criticism.
I mean, it shows up in basic ways. There's very small ways people do this, build these walls. Well, one way is if you say something like this without saying the first part, which is what I say to people on Reddit now is, here, there's the upvoting and downvoting. I fucking hate that. If somebody downvotes my shit, what I do is I update the post and I add, for people downvoting this, instead of keeping it a secret, educate me, help me. And I'm implying by not helping me, you're being a jerk. And then I also add that next sentence. It could be that you're wrong and that I'll be educating you. So if you don't reply now, you're making a massive wall to prevent yourself from being educated. And really, they made a wall for me too by not telling me. For somebody to downvote, that means they had an idea. Hey, I don't like this. Something's wrong with it. Fucking say the damn thing. I'm getting angry about this. Oh, shit.
Do you think that this usually brings some people back and has them comment again instead of the downvoting?
I don't know. And I added last sentence to the message. Don't stay wrong like you stayed wrong about Islam for so many years. So I'm bringing it back to the thing they actually care about too. And of course, you got to say it in a way where you're like, it has to be very pleasant the way you're saying it too. Because otherwise, that's another wall you're building. If you're being mean, they don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Reason allows us to master our emotions, not suppress them. As Aristotle said, anybody can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person, to the right degree, at the right time, for the right purpose, and in the right way, that is not easy and not within everybody's power and is not... Did I mess that up? I have some of it memorized, so I messed it up. But note, everybody can grow both the strength and skill of their anger, learning to wield it with precision so it serves only good and never evil. And I don't mean perfectly, but we can keep getting better at it. By the way, that's another thing that is hard to say, and it's easy for people to get confused about. I can't say in front of every one of my sentences, oh, this is just tentative. And then you shouldn't complain to me and say, oh, you didn't say that's tentative. You get what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. Every sentence is tentative. So I don't want anyone complaining to me that, nah, it's not perfect. Yeah, that's lesson one. Why are we repeating this? By practicing love and reason, we become capable of growth, skillful action, and effective leadership. Level up, grow, lead by learning. And I put a link here for a next step for anyone who's watching this or not watching this. For anyone who reads this post, I have a next step thing so they know where to go next. And it just says, we haven't launched We're currently planning, designing EALS. So join our live streams to find out. And it links to this episode.
Right. So
everything links back to everything else.
In terms of accessing the forum, is that something that's being made available to people to know how to get to it? Because I see over there at the bottom that there is a bunch of views. Is that your views or other people's views?
I think those are almost all my views. But yeah, this is public now. And I have a link somewhere.
Yeah, how do people access it?
Let me.
Are people allowed to comment on it?
You can't comment yet. You'd have to be a member. And I haven't accepted any members yet. I mean, I think we need to start first. Oh, and by the way, timeline-wise, I'm thinking we start 2026. Gives us 2 months from now. And it's a nice round number instead of starting in the middle of the year.
Right, but if you're going to be collecting feedback like we were talking about earlier, if you want to get that first iteration, you can already start having some of that pre-launch if you allow.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I think what you're saying is let people get in, but restrict their posts to one area of giving critical feedback about the
something
program.
of that. Yeah, because if you're going to be launching and right from the beginning, if people had already ideas and it's already maybe a month or two until that proposed official launch, what kind of channel would people have in order to provide that criticism?
Well, so far right now it's putting comments in this post in these things.
Right.
But so I think it makes sense to also do it in the forum.
Yeah, whichever venue that you're going to be selecting for that kind of feedback, it probably needs to be an actual place where people can go to and maybe leave a comment, but also possibly have a discussion.
Yeah, they could be talking with each other, yes. And they might figure out things that wouldn't figured out unless they had that discussion. So yeah, that could be a big benefit.
And it's actually also a good idea to have that kind of pre-launch interest, because then you would start have people thinking enough about whether they're actually interested in the project as a whole, and they might come up with their own ideas just starting off this initial seed.
Okay, well, we have 2 applications, so I'm going to accept them, let them in, and maybe we'll get some feedback that way.
Yeah, that's possible. And if the link to this place can be promoted, I think it's a good idea to just put it
right now. Yeah. Let's develop that little comment. You know what? I have an older one. I could just reuse an old one. Here. Is this sufficient? Explore the EALS forum, and there's the link.
Yeah, I think, but at the same time, given that those you have done away with banners today and you're using comments, there's going to be a flood of comments underneath the video, so I'm not sure if it's going to be overwhelmed by other
I'm also going to, when the live is over, I'm going to make a comment that shows up underneath. It's not part of the live comments. It's, under the video. And in that is a few links, and it includes this thing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, a pinned comment or something like that.
Yeah, pinned. It'll be pinned too. Yeah. I don't think you can pin live stream comments.
I have no idea. But in any case, yeah, it's not only necessarily about what we're talking about today, but in general, if there's a bunch of important links or ideas or uh, a kind of a summary of what's going on, it's having it underneath the video, whether it's in the description or in a kind of a pinned comment. That's not a bad thing.
I think I derailed myself a little bit. I was saying the oh, by the way, Horatio is here. Hello, everyone.
Horatio,
Muslim from France, in France. I derailed myself a little bit. I was giving the outline, but then I went and just read this, something about this, and read all of it. And all this is just repeating that. I didn't mention this yet, sort of, without the name, zero sum, non-zero sum.
yeah, you did.
But I did explain the idea a little bit. And we're going to give a lot of examples of cases where, actually, I already gave one, the battered woman scenario. Come on. Why are you doing that?
Does that get fixed with a tab?
I don't know. No. That's a copy paste from ChatGPT. That always happens. Battered woman scenario. And what do they always say? Oh, love is blind. Fuck that. Not proper love. Let's see. I didn't fully look at all this, by the way, but it was pretty much just her or ChatGPT repeating what I said in a bullet format. And in every one of these, of course, we're leading into the next episode, so we'll be saying a little bit about that episode in this one, and then getting people interested to go see the next episode. There's a lot here I don't even like, but we'll be working on this more and improving it. And then episode 2 outline, I haven't made it yet, but maybe next Friday, you and I could start developing that. I do have something about it. Where do I have that? I wrote down something. I wrote this down. It's just a list of a few ideas, and I tried to rank them by importance. Where should I put it on the screen? Should I put it as a banner? Maybe a banner. Non-contradiction, functional standard, problem framing, guesses and criticism, and within that is falsifiability. Abstracts need concretes. This is just a bunch of basic little things. And of course, it needs more.
That's supposed to go under the umbrella of the reason part, right?
Okay. Yeah, and I haven't put a ton of thought into it yet. But I think next episode we'll do that. You and me try to make a good outline. I'll probably have already some more work done by then, but I'd like your help with that, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the functional standard one. If you don't know what it is, what I mean by it is, like, people get confused by semantics a lot. They without realizing it will assume what you mean by a word when, come on, everyone knows there's not a one-to-one relationship between words and ideas.
Yeah.
But in that moment, they're getting confused and they're not using that general idea. You can't just do one-to-one words to ideas. And they don't see it in the middle of the discussion. So a typical discussion would be something like this. I say, hey, free will exists. and the other person says, no, free will doesn't exist, and here's my reason. They were using different definitions of that word.
Right.
And neither of them are recognizing it.
I'm not sure if it was Wittgenstein or Foucault who proposed that all misunderstanding is semantic misunderstanding.
Smart dude. When was he?
Well, both of them are relatively modern thinkers. I have to track down who actually said that. Both of them were interested in language, both Foucault and Wittgenstein.
Yeah, I remember talking with you about this a long time ago, and then I remember saying to you, I think physicists do really well in this, and you're like, some of them.
Yeah, the actual community of people engaging in science is probably different from what people from the outside think it is.
Well, the reason I thought that physicists would be good at this is, a lot of what we do isn't even in words. So we don't focus on words anyway, in general.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
I guess when you leave your field, you could easily fuck it up.
The problem is that if you're going to be thinking about physics as a pure intellectual endeavor, this is not what physics is. Physics is engagement with nature also. And so eventually you have a kind of a criterion that you're going to be measuring ideas against. It's not like I'm going to argue for string theory, and then someone else is going to say, I'm going to argue for loop quantum gravity, and then they're going to start bashing heads, trying to show which one is more mathematically consistent. That's one of the problems that we have right now because of the absence of experimental input. So it's not that people are going to resolve arguments in physics just using reason. That's not how it works.
Yeah. Although, clarify this for me. So when Einstein came up with, I don't know, one of the two, general relativity, special relativity, I mean, there were no tests that were done to differentiate between his theory and Newton's theory until later. But he was using I don't know details about this. You've said details about this, and I don't remember any of them. But he was using results of experiments previous to that.
Yeah, to a great extent he was doing that, but he also so if you look at the central equation in general relativity, the Einstein equation, you would see that it has Newton's constant. How on earth did it get in there? Well, what Einstein did was he wrote the approximation of low field, and by matching what he has with Newton's law of universal gravitation, it's possible to see where the G comes in. You have G and a bunch of other geometric factors that go into that. So the two theories are really intertwined at that level, and that's where it's possible for the ideas that were proposed by Einstein to make connection with experiment, because the value of G was actually just determined by experiment. There is no way for you to come up with that value just by thinking about it.
Isn't that true for all the constants?
Yeah. So, well, here's the thing. There are certain constants that you can calculate by combining other constants indirectly.
Yeah, but it still was measurements in the original ones.
Yeah. So the thing is that, for example, if you look at the standard model of particle physics, you have eventually undetermined parameters, which we then identify as constants of nature, that you need to go to the lab and measure, and you have no way, at least from what we have so far, you have no way of determining them a priori.
We have a constant that is a variable currently.
Well, you can think of it as a kind of a free parameter, not a variable.
A free parameter. That means a constant that is not yet known. That's all you mean?
Yeah, yeah, it's not something that, as far as we know, is variable, but it's something that gets determined by experiment. Now, something that we consider a constant, like the speed of light, there are theories that's considered to be something that's time dependent. That it's variable with time. In that case, it is a variable. It's not a constant.
What do you mean by speed of light changes with time? How?
So there are theories that go beyond the standard model. Some of them have implications that change some of the values of constants, including the speed of light. This is not mainstream. It's not by any way something that's considered as canonical physics, but still, there are certain models that have a time dependence to what we consider to be constants.
Do you know how it works? Like, I'm trying to understand how it works. How would that even work? You mean like time 0 this second and time 1 minute later, the speed of light depends on whether it's now or a minute from now?
Well, it's going to depend on other things that have to do with the theory, whether it's something else that's going to be changing with time. Well, what could be changing with time could be the scale of the universe. That's one of the things that could be.
It's not really time. It's not a function of time. It's a function of the scale of the universe then.
Yeah, but the scale of the universe is pretty much tied to the change in time, which essentially, as far as we're
so it's like a perfect proxy. Time is a perfect proxy for the scale of the universe.
To some extent, because what's happening to the scale of the universe in general is that it's expanding, and one other thing that's happening in time is an increase in entropy. So we started with very low entropy, and
maybe we changed that. You think humans evolved so much over like, let's say, 1 billion years that we reverse some of that entropy?
I don't know, but
we're small, I know, but
well, as far as we know, if things proceed as they seem to be proceeding, there's going to be a heat death to the universe, which is going to be involving everything, including any kind of intelligent life that's going to be left at that time. So it's like there is no escape from this whole thing if it's going to proceed the way that we think it's proceeding.
Heat death. You're talking about just our solar system or something else?
No, I'm talking about the entire universe.
Heat death, is that the expansion forever or collapse?
It's an expansion forever, cooling down of the universe, running down through all the systems through time, so that the entropy keeps increasing until it reaches its maximum possible value for the universe.
Yeah, but in that scenario, we're talking about all stars have already died, right?
Oh, it's not all stars only. All systems, including atoms, are going to just break apart.
Atoms too. Well, okay, before the atoms part, all stars are dead. That means, I was going to say all humans would be dead from that too, but if we had already figured out how to extract energy from, let's say, antimatter matter reactions, well, then we don't really need a star.
That's the point. You will have exhausted all that at that time. All the gradients that would have been present to actually do that would have been.
And this theory, how far does it say? How long in the future?
We're talking about scales that are not even.
It's more than just the. Like, I heard 15 billion years as the end of the. No. It's much worse than that?
No, 15 billion years is just small change.
A drop. So we're talking like 1 trillion years?
More than that.
More orders of magnitude.
Yeah, I don't have a number off the top of my head right now, but. So
the 15 billion years number is if there's a collapse.
15 billion years right now, it's so the solar system has been there for 5 billion years approximately. The universe as a whole is 13.8 billion years. Any kind of thing that would be happening beyond that, that's the scale that I'm talking about. It's going to be a really, really big scale.
When will the heat death happen? We're talking way far. We'll all be dead, and all of our kids will be dead, and
yeah,
it's very far.
So we might be able to escape the death of the sun, which would happen within. It's approximately expected to have the sun expand and envelop the orbit that we have the Earth in right now. That could happen within a few billion years. So we have time to escape from that. But if we assume that we were able somehow to be those semi-eternal beings that lived for these trillions upon trillions of years, there is that other aspect of what's going to happen to the universe as a whole.
You know what this makes me think of is not this. Hopefully there will be no Islam then. What this makes me think of is what's that infinity hotel concept where physicists try to understand infinity?
Hilbert's Hotel.
What I noticed in that and in other discussions about infinity, and I'm just a novice in this, everyone listening, okay? That we don't really have a perfect infinity. I don't even know if these words are right. Like, as an example of a thing we do in chemistry and physics, we talk about a reservoir. Mm-hmm. So like the ocean, a reservoir of water. What a reservoir means is when I pull water out of it, I do not have to factor in that the reservoir now has less water. So we're treating it as infinity. Now, technically speaking, there is less water in there. I mean, other things went in too, so you'd have to actually calculate all of it. But you can literally take water out of it. But there's no, because of the calculations we're doing, the amount of water that may have left or gained is so small.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, 30 or 30 zeros after the decimal. That there's no reason to even try to calculate that. Now you can use a mathematical formula that treats the reservoir as not a reservoir and it could lose stuff. You can make equations like that, but there's no reason to. So my point here is we can use the concept of infinity without necessarily the thing being actually infinity.
Yeah, that's actually how most of the calculations that we do assume that you have something that's either infinite or something that's infinitesimally small.
Yeah.
Even though you have neither, and in fact, you are supposed to be hitting walls in both directions. But as far as you're far away from these walls, you don't really care. You make the approximation. But there are certain places where it does make an appearance. So, for example, when Feynman was, not only Feynman, Feynman, Schringer, and Tomonaga were doing the initial calculations for quantum field theory and quantum electrodynamics, the way that they resolved the issue was that when you try to calculate, let's call them just amplitudes now without really going into the details of what they are, you get infinities. Exactly because of that assumption. So
that's when you're near the boundary.
That's because we have that assumption that so many of the things don't have actually these finite values. But then the way that they were able to resolve this was to produce a process called renormalization, where essentially you place these infinities and you subtract infinities from infinities in a kind of...
I know what that is. We do that in calculus too.
To some extent, this problem was nastier than this because people were they would do calculations of something that you can go and do experiments with and measure, and you end up with infinities. That's how it used to happen up to the 1940s, 30s.
So what? They developed a better math tool?
Yeah, it's this is the method of renormalization. This is one of the methods that people who just take
You
and
know when this math tool was invented and who did it?
that's what I'm saying. These things were introduced at that time when so the Nobel that Feynman and Schringer and Tominaga got for those eventual calculations actually included this method of renormalization that fixes those infinities that we have there.
What I'm asking is, in all the history that I know of physicists using math, from what I understand, it's the math was already there, and then the physicist looked at it and said, "Oh, I'm going to use that." Are you
Uh,
saying that's what happened here, or it's a physicist made the math?
well, there are many situations where you start making use of math that's already there, but there's also a co-development sometimes of
Okay.
math, of certain aspects of the math by practicing physicists. Although very often, in order to actually do the development, you usually need to involve actual mathematicians because the way that we do math is
Okay, now tell me about Isaac Newton then, because he, I'd rather you explain this than me, but he created some physics, but in order to do so, first he had to create some math. He developed the field of calculus.
yeah. In parallel with Leibniz, where they had the fight over who actually did that.
Okay.
But well, Leibniz was doing that from the integration part. Newton was focusing on the differentiation part.
Opposite ends.
The notation was different. The idea was very similar, and so they had a fight who invented what. But yeah, in order for Newton to actually do what he was proposing using his laws, calculus needed to be invented because um, otherwise you wouldn't be able to talk about instantaneous motion and things of that sort. So it had to be introduced, um, and that was one of the things that enabled him to present the ideas that he had in a mathematical form that can then be tested or
And
implemented.
he did that in his 30s. And that's so amazing, creating physics and math. I mean, usually a physicist doesn't create math, but this guy did. And then the next 50 years of his life, he didn't really do anything else besides read the
Yeah,
Bible.
I don't know exactly about the timeline right now, but yeah, for the remainder of his life, he was concerned with uh,
Numerology.
numerology, finding secret numbers in the Bible. It's bizarre, but that's what he. Imagine what would have happened if he had actually spent that time doing actual physics. That would have been.
But here, let's talk about the other side of it. Could he have done much, given that some of what we figure out in physics is because now we have some technology that can help us do some stuff. So he was very limited on technology. And by the way, everyone listening, this is the 1600s. There was no calculators. He's writing shit on paper.
Right, right, but you have to also realize that there was a lot of development between Newton and the 20th century. So after Newton came Lagrange and Hamiltonian, which took
But how much later was that?
not much later.
So during his lifetime, he could have.
No, not during his lifetime. They
That's
came
what I meant.
maybe a generation or two. We're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I meant during his lifetime, were there advancements that he could have then built on?
I think it would have been possible for him to do more. Again, I'm not a historian of science, so this is basically me speculating about things that might be incorrect. But I think that it would have been possible for him to do a lot more in his time.
Where do you think that would have been? Like what area of physics?
Still in the area of mechanics. So his main contribution in the Principia was in mechanics and in optics. So he he probably could have also elaborated on some of that even more. Because the next development that's
That's what I was going to ask next.
the next set of phenomena that he did not include was something like electricity and magnetism. So he did not.
Oh, I was going to ask about you, Maxwell. You think Newton, if he put his mind to it, could have figured out some of the stuff Maxwell eventually figured out?
No, that's the experimentation that was done at the time. So Coulomb, who came up with Coulomb's law, was it somewhere between 50 and 100 years after Newton. So
and that's well before Maxwell.
Yeah, well, Maxwell towards
200 years
the 19th century. Newton, we're talking about 1600, 1700. So it's a lot of time, but still there was a lot of development within mechanics that goes unnoticed by people who don't actually look at the math, because Laplace, Lagrange, Hamilton, they all developed a lot of the mathematics that we use today, and that was the basis for doing quantum mechanics. So
I remember hearing about all those names, and I remember none of it now, in a class called Numerical Methods, and it was my favorite class, in math at least. It was the last class. And it was so amazing to me because, well, I remember there was this one equation I was looking at, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why it was working. To me, it looked like it's getting information from nowhere. And I don't remember the name. I couldn't tell you anything about it. Everything else seemed okay to me. Like I could understand how it works. But anyway, Numerical Methods, I loved it so much because a couple of things. I was able to see practical applications of it. You know, like if you actually, one of the first things you learn in that class is Newton's method. It's called Newton's method. That's so cool too, by the way, that he's this grandfather of this field, numerical methods. Yeah, and I remember the way
the Newton method and all of the methods that are developed in that sense for numerics have to do with the way of doing calculus by hand, basically.
Yeah, and I want to tell you something that our professor said. I don't remember if it was the beginning or the end of the class, but he said, when you took calculus, or he said this class is based on calculus 2, is what he said. When you took calculus 2 and suppose you got an A, that doesn't mean you learned 90% of it. It means you learned 10% of it. He goes, now that you're taking numerical methods, when you're done with this class, if you get an A, doesn't mean you know 90% of this class. You know 10% of it. But what it does mean is you now know calculus 90%, calculus 2. And I love that analogy he gave. I don't know if it's an analogy, right? But the building on thing, and you only learn the earlier thing if you learn something that built on it really, and then you learn this thing really well.
I don't know if I agree necessarily with that statement, but if you look at, for example, Newton's mechanics and thinking about having interactions between two objects, this is something that you can solve precisely. Add a third object and the problem can't be solved exactly, and so you have to resort to numerics. So that's the famous three-body problem, where in order to talk about the interaction for just adding one third body, it's not something that you can deal with using the precise math, and so you have to do the compromise of going into numerics. So numerics definitely lets you explore a lot more than what you would do otherwise. There are so many different things that did develop that would enable you to solve problems exactly, but relevant problems you cannot really approach exactly. Another example is you go to the Schrödinger equation, you solve the hydrogen atom, you are proud of yourself. Oh, I got the solution.
And then you can't do helium.
You can't do helium. you you start creating toy models that, oh, what happens if I remove all the electrons? Well, now they behave a little bit like hydrogen, but it's not really hydrogen. You still can do the math, but yeah, it's you cannot really approach most of the problems in physics without having to do some approximation, to do some numerics. You can make the approximations as precise as you want, depending on how many orders of magnitude you want to keep as you're doing the approximation. But of course, that's going to be costing computational power. So when you're thinking about creating a world, a virtual world in a game, for example, and you want this to be as realistic as possible, to have an object being thrown and it's behaving in exactly the way that we see it in everyday life, what you're actually doing to get that realism is adding more and more terms in the approximations while you're solving the differential equations that are relevant in this case. And this means that the more realistic things are going to require a lot of computational power, because
and it
you're
accelerates.
Yeah.
And it's a geometric growth.
Yeah.
So like getting a 1% improvement means more like doubling the computation power.
Yeah. In some places you don't really need a lot of terms. Like, for example, in what we talked about just now, in the case of Feynman, when you're doing quantum electrodynamics, you don't really need a lot of terms in order to get good convergence. But if you go to quantum quantum chromodynamics, where you talk about the strong force, then things get significantly messier, and the way that is the expansion that is used is very different, and the kind of approximations that you would get from that numerical way is quite different.
I'm remembering something from earlier in our discussion. I took a class called Solid State Physics, and one of the things we studied was the boundary scenarios. So let's say you're looking at a solid, and in the middle of the solid you can see things one way with a very simple math equation. As you approach the edge of it, the closer you get, now you deviate from the I want to say normal, easy scenario, and you're now close to the boundary, and now it's different math. And really that means more terms, right?
Yeah, because when you're inside the lattice, what happens is that you're just doing periodic solutions. And these periodic solutions are very easy to handle, because the moment that you're done with a cell, the next cell is going to have exactly the same kind of boundary, and so on. So as long as you're far away from the edges, you're fine doing math. The moment that you start getting closer to the edges, that kind of ideal situation is going to break down, and you have to include that presence of the boundary. And
I remember when I learned that, it to me it just felt so beautiful, because you're getting like one big step closer to understanding things more clearly, for me,
Yeah,
and it applies in so many places.
Yeah, so if you're just doing something in the bulk, it's not the kind of treatment that you have just assumes this kind of periodic structure, unless you have some impurities, but then even the impurities can be taken into account. But the moment that you get closer to the edge, that's a completely different kind of treatment.
By the way, I've been telling some people, new topic, you mentioned impurities. Help me understand something I learned a long time ago, and I barely learned it. Superconductance, or let me backtrack, resistance. Impurities in a metal make for more resistance. Theoretically, if there was no impurities, would there be a resistance, or we still have to think about the superconductance?
Yeah. No, you would still have resistance.
So
superconductivity it's a kind of a different phenomenon that has to do with interactions of it involves couplets of electrons interacting together. So it's not about the environment itself. Because keep in mind what the environment is. As the electrons are propagating through the wire, they're going to be interacting
with the
with all the
neutrons, nucleuses.
with all the mess that you have in there. You have other electrons. You have the bare nuclei, if you want to consider it that. You have all sorts of things. So the motion of an electron is basically a kind of a zigzag, a random walk thing that doesn't actually go straight ahead. Whether you
Even with a massive voltage, they're still going in all directions. They're just going this way on average.
Yeah. The massive voltage is going to improve that. It's going to make that external field the dominant thing that's going to cause the motion of the electrons. But still, it's probably we should be.
We should probably stop now. And maybe I want to say one thing. I thought of a couple more episodes we could do independent of EALS. I had what was it? Okay, the first one is a couple of days ago. Someone posted in the ex-Muslim subreddit. What was your first rebellious act as a Muslim? I never saw that kind of question before, and I started answering it, and I thought it's worth doing an episode on.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to hear yours too. Aside from that episode, I don't know if this is the one I was thinking about, but maybe there's 3 instead of 2. I want to do an episode on morality without God, without Allah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had a long discussion with, I think it was Grok about this. So the point is, I have a lot of my ideas already down on paper. Yeah, and I don't remember what the other one was. I think there's another one. I just forgot it and didn't write it down. But I think next week we'll still continue on this. The next week's episode will be us developing the reason episode of EALS.
Okay.
All right, so that's it, everyone. We're going to go ahead and leave and see you guys next week.
Okay.
Bye-bye.